just got this plant from the garden centre, quite excited really, and it's called Berberis, and I've seen these in Retford up the road from me. They have a profusion of yellow flowers, and it's called Berberis darwini. They can grow to 2 meters tall, beautiful yellow flowers, and the berries, which apparently in some countries like Iran, don't quote me on this, but it does say that some of them, if they're treated correctly and cooked, can be partially edible. It says it can cause a mild stomach upset here, but I suppose they have to cover themselves. But I've always loved these plants that produce berries, so I've got this one here. And of course, this will be put not far away from my eucalyptus, which is another like weird and wonderful plant which I've used over the winter. The Brussels have been a big success, so I've taken a whole stalk back with me for Sunday lunch, so that should be a nice treat, so quite pleased with that. The garlics are all coming up now along the line there. I put these in about a couple of months ago, and they're now all sprouting nicely along the line. This area here, when I first took the plot over, was basically the area where I basically found dead rats, and the remains of about 4 glasshouses. The amount of glass I took out was just unbelievable. The strawberry bed, well, I propagated as many as I could, and I've just come back now today. The forecast is, of course, that it's going to get a lot colder next week, and heavy rain. But being in the Midlands, we don't always catch these fronts. We're often on the boundary, so sometimes we get away with it, just clips us. So I'm hoping that's going to happen in this case. Strawberries have done okay. The little propagating I've done's work. The compost heap that I mentioned before, which is basically AKA my wormery, is done fantastically. It's shrunk to about half the height it was over the last 3 months. So very pleased about that experiment. And also, where we've had the mustard here, this has done extremely well. Dug it all in just as the frost got it, and there's my beloved little Berberis plant there. Oh, I'm so happy about that. I can't tell you. You know when you see a plant somewhere, when you go out, because someone had one outside the library, it's a place called Retford, massive one there, it had profusion of these flowers, and I always wanted one. I thought, what the heck is that thing called? And then, you know, you should ask someone really. And then suddenly in the garden centre there, it was all tucked away. I rushed back to get one before they'd gone. Just finished pruning these now, so with this dry spell here, it's basically black currants, they're at the end, red currants, and on this side of the plot I've got the gooseberries, and the ones with Hinamaki, which is the ones with those red berries, I got those really mostly, and they are extremely vigorous, worth growing in a plot like this, which is demanding. This is my Oregon grape, Winter Beauty. It hasn't got the actually no, there's a couple of flowers there. We've had a few flowers on the Oregon grape, and these of course do produce fruits as well. And this is called Winter Beauty, and these ones are a flaming red cornus, and this is its sister plant here. First spotted these in a village called Radcliffe-on-Trent over the river. They do look beautiful, and people have them in their front gardens. I thought, well, I have to have a couple down here. Can't resist propagating this blackberry. This is a local species from the Trent Valley, and the Midlands of England, quite rightly, were called the belly of England, and in Saxon times it was the kingdom around Mercia, I think it was around here. The capital wasn't here, it was much further down the river, and basically people have always grown wild food and propagated wild food around here, and these grow fantastic down here. Happily, my Swiss chard survived the frosts, etc. Had some frost in my bird pond and my little bird pond, etc. And I always fill up the feeders for my birds, and they've been frozen over. I always smash the ice, and so that the chard survived. The rhubarb is just coming through now, and I did propagate these when I first got the plot, and put in some new varieties as well. And I put in some red champagne, but these ones here were originally on the plot, growing somewhere else, and I basically dug them up, and they've done very well here. I have them next to blackberries, and I've pruned them right down, but as you can see, you can't stop the rhubarb. Of course, in Yorkshire, I read somewhere in the rhubarb triangle, they force this stuff, and they used to bring great loads of it down to London on the trains many years ago to the markets down London way, and it grows okay, very well here on the river, and as I say, it's nice to see it coming up nice and early. My Kentish cob's a bit lonely, it's waiting for the filbert, and someone at the garden centre told me that if you grow these cob nuts you should have the filbert. So when I get home, when I get round to in the front garden, I've left it for a bit because I've liked having seen the birds in the garden, but I've got to prune it soon, and I'll bring down some little saplings there because it propagates well, and then I'll have the filbert with the Kentish cob, and then you do really get a much bigger crop. The chap who had this plot before me liked his flowers. I kept the best of the bulbs. I've kept some of the dafts he left in, some of the bulbs, and they're starting to come up now. I noticed in the villages around me on the river, one called Bulkett, all these snowdrops are up, very beautiful. So if you're out and about, look out for snowdrops, gorgeous. The triple graft pear tree seems to be looking a lot better for spraying with the bicarb. And I noticed the other trees seem to have less moss on them. This was in a terrible state, and basically it has removed quite a bit of the moss, and it looks more alive than it ever did. Didn't get many pears in my garden, so hopefully it'll be better. It's a pink sky tonight. -2 they reckon.